Hey guys, Nero back with what I'm going to be playing for the 329 All-Flame League, for my league starter, and probably also for quite a while until the endgame is going to be the new Luminary Ascendancy. And then I'm going to be Link/Aurabotting myself the Kineticist Merc. As you know from the announcement, Mercenaries return, so Mercs can be found from Act 3 onwards. And if you are the Luminary Ascendancy with the first Ascendancy node, you can hire a Mercenary permanently. We assume that all of the skills basically and all of the scaling currently is working exactly the same as in Mercenary League. So you can still basically Aurabot him and the build will be completely insane. I have prepared the PoBs for the Aurabot/Linkbot and for the Mercenary completely from Leaguestart, from 0 basically map start to fully endgame min-maxed to like 50 mirror budget. So there are steps for anyone in there and you can basically follow along to what I'm going to be playing all the way. This is going to be a pretty long video. So if you're looking for anything specific or if you're just looking for the PoB, then feel free to look into the description or check out the timestamps below. Other than that, I will be going in detail into every single setup and talking about some decisions and some gear choices. Alright, let's start off by talking about the Luminary Ascendancy itself. Completely new Scion Ascendancy. Scion is now unlocked for everyone at the start, so even if you have not played the game before, you can play Luminary as your league starter. However, the build is pretty complicated, just keep that in mind. So first of all, Noble Blood, where you can hire a Mercenary permanently with normal lab. This can be done from Act 3, Scepter of the God onwards pretty much, where there are in total 4 Mercenary spawns that can be found in the campaign. If you don't find any good ones in those 4 spawns, you can then reset the zones to find better ones. There are quite a few carry mercenaries that you can use early on, since the flame make will be quite strong. So the choice you have is just basically a pretty flexible choice, and you can try out a bunch of stuff. Yes, secondly, there are 6 small nodes for Mercenary can equip various unique items in various slots. There is a small node for every single slot, / the big node down here for weapons and shields, except for body armors. Mercenaries are not able to equip body armors, most likely to not allow players to Aurabot with the Doriani Merc again. Unique body armors can only be found if you hire the Mercenary and he already has the unique body armor equipped, for example with the Scarab that gives Mercenaries all unique items. However, this is very inconsistent and probably not reliable. And in this guide, we will be using rare body armor anyways for a basically mandatory modifier, so which doesn't really affect us. Yes, technically you could run your Mercenary with full unique items with these and basically only take the first node and then spec 5/6 small nodes here or use the 6 node here. So you can do all but 1 slot unique /2 slots with body armor. Yes, Legendary Arms then leans into this a bit with Mercenaries dealing 8% more damage for each unique item they have equipped, which is pretty strong, especially early on. However, we will see on the left side, this is sadly a little bit outclassed, or rather the small nodes here are a little bit outclassed with the flaming scaling that we get. So in the end game, or basically from league start to end game onwards, we will always use only 1 small node here, and then use the big notable down here to get mostly a unique shield and also a unique weapon. Yes, most important then for us on the left side here, we have the link tree. So 50% less cost of link skills. Doesn't affect this build in particular, but is pretty nice. And link skills have infinite attachment duration, is very nice, which means your link skills only have to be applied once at the start of the map, and then they will stay on the Mercenary for the whole map. You do not need any additional duration to make the breaking range somehow better. Links have a grace period of I think 4 seconds, where the Mercenary can then be back in range. And since the Mercenary teleports after you and probably has decent movement speed anyways, he will always be in range of your link. So this should never break. Also good, if your linked Mercenary dies, the link owner does also not die. This shouldn't happen too much anyways. A I think this could be a little bit of an issue early game, that your Mercenary dies. Allows you to lose little bit less experience, but unfortunately your map still is bricked if your Mercenary dies, since your Mercenary can't be revived in the same map. Yes, and the thing basically why we're even going the left side is this node here, Golden Glory. Increases and reductions to light radius also apply to effect of your link skill buffs on your Merc. Since we're going to be scaling Flame Link for flat damage on your Mercenary, this is a completely crazy node. Allows you to give roughly 3 times the Flame Link effect, including the 5% max life scaling from the player to the Mercenary, which basically gives us a lot of like 1k flat roughly from the link itself, and then 15% of our maximum life then transferred to the Mercenary. Depends, of course, a bit on your items. Yes, and that's already our 8-point that we will be choosing. Technically, on the right side, there is some survivability stuff, where either you or your Merc get some survivability things, depending on your life pool. And Mercenary Aura effect, which does not apply since the Mercenary is our carry and not our Aurabot. But you can definitely build around these two as well, just not in a carry fashion. Also a small disclaimer, I guess, since this is, of course, a new Ascendancy and we don't know how Mercenaries will be working completely in detail. And we didn't even figure out in the Merc League itself how Mercs basically scaled completely. This is experimental, so just keep that in mind. There might be stuff that you need to change on a whim. The build might not work at all, but if it's similar to how it was last time, then the build will be good. As always, guys, keep in mind that I am using Loadouts both in the Aurabot PoB and the KB carry PoB. So when switching between setups, make sure to always use the Loadouts, as both gems, config, items, and the tree will change together, just so everything's in sync and everything's working. Before we get into the basically into the real setups, I want to quickly talk about the leveling part. Leveling, personally, I will be leveling with Sunder, and I only attached a very small tree, roughly until RT, until roughly level 50, and this will be when I think the Merc carry can basically take over, or mostly take over, or at least do something. For gem setups, I didn't put anything in there. I would highly recommend to follow Havoc's sound leveling guide for Sunder leveling on Maxroll. I will link that in the description as well. I will personally also follow this, so I'm not that good at leveling, and yeah, Havoc is. So make sure to follow that. Okay, for the real build, let's start off with basically the core concept of what we are doing. So we are carrying a Kineticist Mercenary. The Kineticist is a Mercenary that uses Kinetic Blast of Clustering to deal damage. Kinetic Blast of Clustering would technically work like the normal gem, so we're scaling on mana, but we are not doing that. We are fully scaling Flame Link. So all of our damage comes from Flame Link, and most from the line Link target gains added fire damage equal to 5% of your maximum life. Because of this line, we will be stacking life on the Aurabot, or rather Flame Link bot, because we only have 1 aura, I guess, or 3 auras. So this is mostly a life stacker on the Aurabot side, and then a normal, I don't know, KB Mercenary on the KB side. There is some stuff additionally going on with a support Animate Guardian and 2 support Spectres. We are only running these because we have the gem slots open, and we're using a Hollowed Monarch, which gives linked minions less damage taken. Since our link is permanent, this is permanently less damage taken for the AG and for the Spectres, which should improve their survivability a lot. And together with an Convocation setup on automation, the survivability for those should be very good. Like we saw earlier with the Golden Glory node, our Flame Link then is scaling with Light Radius, which allows the Merc Aurabot to use things like Nycta's Lantern, Hollowed Monarch, which gives 50% Light Radius, Nycta's also 50 Light Radius, then Loris Lantern in the early game for 31 Light Radius, to scale some Light Radius for the Aurabot. If you look at the Light Radius modifier, we are roughly at 3 times. In most setups, map start a little bit lower. And in the min-max setup, we're at 3 exactly. So our flame link is roughly 3 times as strong in all of the setups. Right, let's start out with the first setup. So the map start setup. So roughly level 70. This should be doable from respec points from the Sunray leveling onwards. So this is 36 respec points until this tree, which should be doable with just gold at level 70 and the respec points from the campaign. If you can't fully respec, don't worry. You can do it a little bit over time. Technically only basically life on us matters and the survivability. Other than that, we don't have any scaling anyways for damage. So our tree technically is not that important. This is also why I'm keeping some quality of life stuff here at the start. Harrier for more move speed, attack speed for shield charge. All of the jewels, only taking 1 pointers at the start, so the 2 Scion jewels and the one we puff by, with only single mods with 7% life. Then Unwavering Stance in all setups to be stun immune. And yeah, rest of the tree is mostly life. So we're running full life masteries, all 6 life masteries for the, you can find it, the life mastery where we get 10% more max life if we have all 6 life masteries, which you can get on this tree already. And I have selected all of the 4 stat nodes because we do have some rather high early stat requirements during map start because of some curses and some specters for int. Yeah, this should help with the gearing. And that a little bit of max res scaling, Captain Blood immunity from the mastery. And on that regen, picking 2 regen wheels. So 1 hearty with the mastery 50 flat. And then Brink of Death, because we are going to be running low life in the early game and in the mid game until we swap off Loris Lanterns. Yeah, 3 rather basic, basically only life nodes and some sound start stuff. Let's go over the items using 4 uniques. Basically 3, I don't know, not mandatory but very strong, is Nycta's Lantern. Yeah, this could be pretty expensive. If it is, you can skip it, buy it later. You can do some hasting until you have the stuff and then go to maps if you want to be a little bit stronger and are not as confident in the Merc. But yeah, Nyctas, if you don't have a Nyctas, there is not really anything that can replace it. I would go with a +1 Fire Wand is the only thing to scale 1 more Flame Link level. Other than that, nothing really that you can do or nothing that does anything. Maybe another unique has light radius, I actually didn't check that. Yes, I'm running a shield on all setups. You technically could run dual wield Nyctas Lanterns. However, shield charge is just so much better for mobility compared to running around and flame dashing. So for me, it's not really not even a question to run a shield. For mods, yeah, as you see, it's extremely simple in the early game. Only thing that's a little bit important is Amulet. You're looking for a lot of intelligence and dex. Probably a dex int base with an int roll or something. And then crafted is just a lot of resist and chaos res. On the helmet, you want to make sure that you get 15% light radius roll. Basically only want 2 mods, life and light radius. Yeah, and also get as high a life as possible, of course, on all slots. Then rings, we're running double Loris, gives us 31 life radius per ring. And also gives us 50 chaos res in total, 16 movement speed and 40 all res. So decent stats. Sadly, it does not have any life on them, but it's still worth using because the light radius scaling is so strong. Yes, damage of enemies hitting you is unlucky while you are on low life is roughly 8% on average. Damage reduction is also not bad. Belt of the Deceiver, I've just put here, you can basically run a rare belt as well. Nearby enemies are intimidated, it's just a little bit of more damage and the belt should be 1 or 2 chaos. Yeah, crit reduction also decent, so yeah, decent belt on the early game. Yeah, flasks, nothing crazy. Jewels, nothing crazy. For the skills, So our auras are basically the skills are roughly the same on all setups. In Mapstart, it's a little bit different, and we'll be talking a bit more about the final setup in the later setups. We have our Purity of Elements on Eternal Blessing. This gives element immunity to us and to the Mercenary and to the AG and Spectres. Also res caps the AG and res caps the Spectres. So very good to have. Other options are technically D-term or something, but I don't think it's very good. Purity of Elements just solves so many problems, and yeah, just use this one. Flame Link, of course, is our basically main skill. Then Automation Convocation for the AG setup. Flammability for a curse. Then we have an Molten Shell setup, so cast never shake Molten Shell, Moderation, and Enduring Cry for endurances on demand. We do have some endurance charge generation with Inexorable, which is 25% chance to gain on hit. Since we don't have any avoidance, this should be free endurances most of the time when mapping. But yeah, single target if it's too inconsistent for you, click Enduring Cry. Also, if you want some more regen, click Enduring Cry. Yes, we're actually running 2 more auras than on our life pool because we are blood magic, so we don't have any mana. We're running Precision and Vitality on our life. Precision because the Merc needs a lot of accuracy, and crit is of course good for scaling. And Vitality because most of our recovery is from regen in the early game. Yes, Pet Blood. Pet Blood basically because we want to be low life for low risk lanterns, and it's not really a downside anyways to run Pet Blood then. Yeah, our low life is 55% because of the mastery, so we have a 59 unreserved, so we have a little bit over, but doesn't really matter. All of the degen should be evened out by just the regen. That's why we have both regen wheels, where we're running Enduring Cry, and then we also have a double life flask in the early setup. So our survivability should be very good, especially because we're also on like 6k life at level 70, so yeah, shouldn't really be dying at all. Yes, next up, yeah, shield charge setup. Straightforward, shield charge, fast attacks, momentum, frostblink for mobility. And then we have an AG setup and a Spectre setup. So both are linked with minion life and meat shield. And then for the Spectres, I've put it here in the gem name as well. We're running double Frenzy Ape. So these are from Act 3, the Carnage Chieftain, I think. Yeah, Carnage Chieftain. These give permanent frenzy sustain if you run 2 of them to be consistent for your Mercenary, which is a good, decent damage boost. For the AG early on, there is a Mapstart AG set. It's basically just very straightforward, Dying Breath, Leer Cast, and rest doesn't matter. Boots. Legacy of Fury technically is very good, but probably around 1 divine. I wouldn't invest into those too early. Yeah, just use any rare boots, belly just for some life, or can use a rare chest as well, soft bones, or can use rare gloves as well. Probably get some chaos resist going if you can on the boot slot and on the other slots. But the HE doesn't really matter too much at the start. Yeah, I think that's already it for the map start setup. And then let's next get into the mid game. All right, next up for the mid game, let's talk a bit about the differences compared to the early game setup. So what you're going to be seeing is for the helmet, we're now running the Hallowed Monarch. On the headhunter effect, the on killing a rare monster, random linked minion gains its modifiers, does not work for the Mercenary. So the Mercenary will not get headhunter from this item. We are basically running it only for the 50% light radius and for the damage reduction on the link for the AJ and for the Spectres. But mostly for the light radius. Then we're swapping to a KM's Art, of course. Life stacking Staper. This is a lot more life, which of course increases some socket pressure, but it's all good. Yeah, for gloves, boots, basically a little bit more chaos res and then trying to get some life regeneration rate going to better improve our survivability. Amulet is the biggest defensive change. So Defensive Destiny is a T0. Will be pretty expensive, I think, at the start. Will cost quite a few diffs. But is on your person the single biggest tankiness upgrade. If you feel like your regen, since we have like 3k regen or whatever, is already enough to sustain you, then you could delay this a little bit. But Defiance is incredibly strong for life sticking. Yes, we are still on the Loris Lanterns, which means we are still on low life with the Pet Blood setup. Upgrading the Loris, as we'll be seeing later, is a little bit too expensive at this point. So we will be keeping the Loris until the end game, basically. Yes, and then belt is one of the most important things, the Cincture of Benevolence. So this belt makes unique utility flasks you use applied to linked targets, which means all of our flasks, Quicksilver, Quartz, Silver, Gold, and Diamond, are going to be applying to the Mercenary, which is a big damage boost for like Onslaught and for the crit chance. If we spoiler a little bit on the Mercenary, then we will be using Soul First, and Soul First gives Soul Eater during any flask effect. Normally the downside is that the Soul Eater resets when you use a flask. However, since the Merc never is using any flasks, during mapping he will be permanently at 45 stacks. Soul Eater got nerfed a little bit, so the duration when it starts to decay is now after 2 seconds, and it decays at 5 stacks per second. However, this is basically only a mapping setup anyways. So it will still be at full stacks if you're doing like Breach, if you're doing Legion, if you're doing the new Abyss. Will be permanently at full stacks and will be getting 225% increased attack speed from that incredibly strong setup for early game power. Yeah, for the tree, basically just a little bit more points, filled out a lot of more life nodes. We pathed towards the top and picked up the mine cluster here with mines can be damaged, and the light rate is here. This allows us to go for a Stormblast mine setup. These have like roughly 10-second duration, and 3 throws should be, or like 4 throws should cap you at 18 mines, which will be like 70% increased damage taken for enemies. Very strong. Only needed basically on bosses, single targets, map bosses. Since you don't have to press anything anyways besides your curse and the mines, the link is permanent, and your movement skill, I guess. This is at least something to do. Yeah, and other than that, filled out a lot of the life nodes, picked up the endurances, picked up more life down here. Yeah, nothing crazy on the tree. I think that was already it for the mid-game. Red Dream, I guess. Yeah, Fallborn Red Dream. Depends on how expensive it is. You can pick this up earlier than later. You want the 2s for fire resistance. These will be expensive early on, since not a lot of people are doing King's March early. So if these are too expensive, just skip them. You will lose like 600 life in total. But the Fallborn Red Dream is still worth it, just from these Pharaoh's nodes down here and the Aura's node down here. So still a good jewel even without the tattoos. So yeah, next up, let's talk about endgame. Alrighty, endgame time. So some changes from the gear point of view. Actually, not too much has changed. We upgrade the rare shield a bit, get some crit DR going, maybe some PDR, depending on what you're dying to. Yeah, weapon is still the same, harmonic the same. Maybe look for a corruption here for light radius corruption that was added newly in this patch. This is probably going to be very expensive. So if this is not affordable yet in this stage, just keep this one for later. Yeah, Calm's Hut. Maybe look for a volatile Val here. I put a 117 is already pretty strong or pretty good. These were roughly like 20 divines or so last league. Yeah, depends on the Valor prices, I guess, this league. Yeah, gloves, still the same, some life regeneration rate. Boots, still basically the same, it's only, yeah, regen and res. Yeah, big change here on the ring. We have removed now the Loris Lantern, so no more Loris. And we have replaced it with a Vermilion ring with T1 life and T1 light radius. this is basically the first point I would say you can swap away from the lorries when you have the Vermilion with T1 life and the light radius. Yeah, additionally some recoup, good to pick up for some recovery, then chaos res. So when you're crafting a good ring, probably want to pick up a Calandra's Touch, probably cheaper than crafting a second one, or at least less struggle. Yeah, if you have this one, then you can swap away. And because we have swapped away from the low life things where we need low life, we can then also drop any low life scaling. So we are no longer running Petrified Blood. We are only running Vitality and Precision on our life pool. So we have no more low life. Yeah, belt is still the same, Cincture of Benevolence. Because it's such a low level belt and I think a T5 unique. You can look for a life corruption here. This was buffed this patch as well to 10%. And then you can use Tainted Catalyst to go for 11 or 12%. Yeah, flasks. Now definitely make sure at this point to have Flatulent Flask, so charge when getting hit and with auto use. And then on the tree side, yeah, we've upgraded to an Adorned setup. So the initial Adorned setup, I've put here as 72% Adorned. As the lowest, I would say an Adorned setup is viable. Yeah, 72% is makes a 7% life roll 12%. And this is the lowest I would go. I've put in here 2 5 passive voices and 1 3 passive voices. Of course, you can play with another 5 passive voices and drop some life notes or whatever. But yeah, this is already on level 100 in the Endgame. I don't think leveling will be much of an issue if you're map blasting. So you should be hitting 100, I think, relatively easy on this build because you are so tanky. Yes. Yeah, for the Adorned jewels, because we can now stack max res on the jewels itself, we can run melding. So decent melding, make sure it's -4, and then the res roll is not that important. You need quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maximum fire resist jewels to cap yourself to 90 max res. And the rest of the jewels are then either recoup or some all-res jewels or helping with stats. You can tinker around a bit depending on your gear. You can also run, for example, Chaos Res on the Adorned jewels and run stats instead on like gauntlets, for example. Yeah, a little bit of flex here. That definitely want to pick up the tattoos now for the Red Dream. Sound starter stayed the same with. I've unspec'd the light radius in the endgame setups because I've just felt it's probably kind of annoying to have light radius basing on your energy shield when you have Giga Life Stacker, and then you will still be running around with 0 light radius instead of like lighting everything up in dark maps. So if you don't mind that, you can probably take this mastery in somehow, even in the end game. But at this point, damage should not be an issue anymore. The Merc will be doing so much damage that I'm gonna be going for a little bit more for quality of life. Yeah, and then let's check out the next endgame setup. Okay, we're now pretty deep into the endgame. Let's look at the endgame Mageblood setup. So from gear point of view, compared to the previous endgame setup, it's similar. So we have same weapon, shield, helmet, chest. Then we have a bit better gloves with implicit, running boots with brittle ground. Yeah, just a little bit more optimized suffixes to make the Adorned jewel a bit more efficient. And the big thing is we swapped away from the Cincture of Benevolence to a Mageblood, which means we can then also swap our Merc away from the Soulfare's belt to use another unique slot, which will be Enmities. At this point, if you are swapping, just a disclaimer, if you are swapping to Enmities earlier, then you want to be probably dropping the Cincture as well earlier and run maybe a Stygian instead. You can still technically use the Cincture anyways and then just not have Soul Eater, but yeah, could be an option. Yeah, since we swapped to Mageblood, of course we get Mageblood flasks, which allows us to use 1 Ruby flask, and a little bit more res and the res flask to cap res a lot, and which gives us a lot of flexibility on the Adorned jewels then. Can run the Progenesis, very strong of course on a live build. And then we have a lot of recoup jewels. And then just we only need 3 max res fire res jewels anymore to cap up to 90. And with all of these recoup jewels we have 66% recoup, 2.4k live region, and we still have Defiance with 24% on a 23k live pool. So should be basically unkillable. Yeah, Adorned has been upgraded to an 88% Adorned. I think you only need 86% for the 13% life breakpoint. Small upgrade, but yeah, notable I guess with so many jewels. Yeah, Milling is the same. The voices have now all been upgraded to 3 passives at this point. You can do this a little bit later, of course, and then spec a few less life nodes. But yeah, so 3, roughly the same as on the previous endgame setup. Okay, and let's get into the min-max setup. On the price range, I think we're talking about quite a few mirrors in here. So we still have the Nyctus as our business slot weapon, this time with an AoE corruption for more aura area effect. Then on the shield, looking for crit DR plus PDR, of course, and then double T1 life with, if possible, strength as well for more life. On the Hallowed Monarch, we're looking for a max roll, less damage taken, with max roll corruption, so 30 light radius corruption. On the Chaos, we're looking for an enchanted, chanced, volatile wild Chaos, which is 1403 maximum life. Last league, for example, this was around 5 mirrors alone. Yeah, gloves, looking for mark effect, mind throwing speed, since we are swapping to sniper's mark at this stage already. Area of effect here in the unveil for more aura area of effect. On the boots, cannot be poisoned, yeah, brittle, same boots as on the previous endgame setup. Then on the rings, we're looking for a reflected manifold ring. So we're going to be reflecting T1 life with life quality and T1 light radius. So this is a 2 mod ring. Should be not too bad. I don't know what it also looks like 1 in 6 or something, or 1 in 8 to hit this. Reflect was a bit nerfed. I calculated this one with 1.8 times modifier on the reflecting mist. We don't know yet what the new reflecting mist values are going to be. So keep that in mind. Very strong upgrade here for our life. Yeah, then we're looking for life corruption on the Mageblood. It's just 12% more life. Flasks changed a little bit, swapped away from the bismuth to a silver flask, gave a bit more move speed, a bit more attack speed for shield charge. In turn, we needed to pick up quite a bit more resistance on the Adorned jewels, and we dropped some recoup. We're down to 36% recoup here. For rougher stuff, for example, if you are farming Valdos in this setup, I would run the bismuth still, and then run more recoup jewels. Gives you a lot more recovery versus damage over time. You have the 2k region already, but yeah, I think the recoup is more value than just a few more move speed. Yeah, and that upgraded to 3 1-point passives, 1 passive voices. Rest of the tree stayed the same. We're still keeping the aura wheel for the ink damage taken. Running Sniper's Mark on an and the Stormblast Mine on an Awakened Enhance to give us the 6% increased damage breakpoint on Stormblast Mine. And then for the Animate Guardian setup, we're dropping Meat Shield for Awakened Empower level 5, which gives us level 21 Spectres, which allows us to use a 3rd Spectre. So the Spectre setup I've put into the config as well, so you can look at the Spectres whatever they are. Yeah, that's mostly it for the min-maxed changes. And I think next we'll get into the Mercenary setups. Okay, then let's talk about the Mercenary and his gear set. There are a total of, I think, 5 or 6 different gear sets here in the PoB. I've tried a few different options, especially towards the end game, because there are still some open questions right now. So last time during testing, it was not really clear if Wrath Pit is even working on the Mercenary. This time, with the character stat sheet of the Mercenary, we should be able to confirm that. However, it's still not even sure if spell damage is working for the Mercenary. So these two things, if we can figure those out, would change some of the setups then. Towards the end game, I provided one setup for the Enmity setup that is not running RevBit in the end game because RevBit apparently didn't work last time. Personally, I also did not run it. So yeah, keep an eye out for new information coming out there. So just keep that in mind. For the early game, however, this pretty much doesn't matter. We will be running Piscators in the early game with Seal's Amplifier's shield. Why this shield? Has some decent spell damage, if it works, of course. Yeah, some life, and most importantly, has AoE per enemy killed. Because this Mercenary with the Soul First setup is geared towards farming stuff that is high density. So like, I guess, Legion, Breach, Abyss, whatever. Anything where you need clear, even Simulacrum early. AoE is very good. So AoE here just gives us better coverage. As we will see, we're running quite a bit of AoE. I really liked that last time I played the build, so I'm basically using the same now. Last time in Mercenary League, I ended on this shield. I never swapped off of it. I did the boss in the showcase with this shield on, so yeah, worked out nicely. Yeah, rest of the gear, I've put the implicits everywhere already. At the start, you won't have them, of course. Keep in mind, on the Mercenary, similar to the AG, you can use the higher level modifiers. So while a unique enemy is in presence and while a pinnacle boss is in presence, they are always active, not only while fighting bosses or unique enemies. So if you can, later on upgrade to the pinnacle ones. Here at the start, I've put the unique ones because you can roll the unique ones with greaters. For the pinnacle mods, you need to roll with grants, which can be a bit expensive in the early game. Yeah, not a lot of interesting stuff here. Just making sure we get a lot of accuracy on some of the gear. Big accuracy roll on the gloves. Yeah, other than that, just capping the res. Getting 2 veiled rings, one with power charge and kill, one with frenzy charge and kill for a clear. Yeah, amulet with spell damage, crit multi, some crit stuff on the amulet. Yeah, nothing crazy. Chest maybe. I've put I think it's Insanity Essence. Just use 1 essence on the chest, use whatever you get, and then craft some Chaos Rays on there. Just for the AoE. Yeah, rather straightforward besides the uniques, of course. When you have the Soul First, before just equip any other unique belt, because you will have the unique node probably. Or rather, after Uberlab, you will have the unique node. Before Uberlab, you will have to just run full rares. Yeah, after Uberlab, equip the Soul First belt. If you don't have it yet, equip any other rare, unique belt. Yeah, it's basically it for early game. For mid game, then, we're staying on a similar setup. So we're staying on the Piscators, Seals, and Soul First. Stuff to upgrade here is a Corrupted Piscators with crit chance corruption or attack speed. I think crit chance is a little bit better. Yeah, other than that, all of the rares have been upgraded with basically an Abyss socket plus a Fracture mod. So you just buy the Fracture mod on any base does not really matter. You slam 1 Abyss socket fossil on there. And then if you have full suffixes, you can reforge life maybe once to get a life roll on there. Other than that, just craft your accuracy, craft resists, whatever you need. Can look through the gear there. It's pretty straightforward. The gloves are a little bit better. Put multi-modded gloves with already veiled approach speed and area damage and AoE, because approach speed and AoE both very important for clear. And making sure that you have rage and hit on the gloves also very good. Same with fire exposure or leech. If your Merc is dying, make sure to put leech on the gloves instead. You can then run the Pyroman anyways on your character to get the exposure back. So that's not an issue if you have to drop that. Yeah, other than that, still very straightforward. Next stayed the same. Ring stayed roughly the same. You can look at Fractured Delve Leech Ring. So fire damage leech life from Delve. there should be a bunch available, even if not fractured. Maybe there is one with already some accuracy on it, or with some kind of useful mods, chaos res on it. Just buy that one and craft something on there. Should be fine for the mid game. Yeah, maybe on the soul first, then also you can look for a corruption towards the mid game. Yeah, attack speed doing flask effect is probably very good. Crit multi as well. Yeah, just any DPS mod. Yeah, for the end game enmity, so basically when you're swapping to enmity, which would be either when your character has Mageblood, so you can't wear the Saint belt anymore, or when you're doing content where running Soulfist doesn't make sense. So if you're doing, let's say T17 boss rushing or farming Ubers, then of course the Soulfist belt does not do anything for you and is a complete waste of a unique. So you can drop that then, and then switch to an enmity. Here are two different setups. Both are using basically the same gear, but on one setup I'm still using the Piscator, maybe even double corrupted here, and a Rev Pit. So if the Rev Pit works, it's by far the biggest, the strongest shield. If it does scale with player life, we will see that on the Merc spell sheet then. If it does not work, I've added a endgame enmity with no Rev Pit as well. Different series, we're running Untouched Soul. So Untouched Soul gives Illyres per white socket. White sockets now very easy. You basically have baseline only white sockets on your gear if you craft it with Jeweler orbs, down to basically white socket the first socket, then Jeweler down from one socket up. From one socket up to 4, and should be easy to have all whites. Maybe we need 1 or 2 green for some accuracy to cap your hit chance. But that will depend also on the Merc's base stats then. Yeah, for weapon, pretty straightforward Ellie weapon craft with, I think, Fractured Fire is easiest, and then some essence spamming or crafting spell damage at the end and spamming crit essences. Then reforging crit ones for crit multi. There are a few different ways to craft this. Pretty, there should be a lot of guys on YouTube for this one. Yeah, for the shield, looking for fire resist, attack speed, and min power charges. Prefixes can be basically anything. Block is pretty good for some defenses, and the life roll maybe. Yeah, you need a evasion shield, I think, to get attack speed roll. So keep that in mind. Easier to craft maybe would be just with crafted attack speed. Yeah, maybe there are already some. Didn't really look into it yet how to craft this one. For the rest of the gear, we're just looking at Chaos Res and Fire Res basically, and Lightning Res. So we need to cap our Chaos Res to 75, and after that we're trying to push Fire Resistance and Lightning Resistance as high as possible, while keeping an Abyss Socket on every single item. So Abyss Socket plus Res, and then while we're scaling Lightning Res is for the body armor mod. I'm gonna be using a Grasping Mail with the Lightning Resistance Overcamp mod for crit chance. This together with the, I don't know what we have here, like 400% lightning overcap, gives a lot of crit chance, and the Merc probably already has some innate crit chance as well, because he has a lot of crit multi as well. Baseline, so this should nearly crit cap you. Yeah, this chest also not too bad to craft. I think you need to maybe fracture the mod or just craft it without the Abyss Socket for the start is completely fine. Making sure here that you want to have the implicit for Frenzy Charge on the Pinnacle mod, or at least below 10 seconds, to have permanent Frenzy Charges from this one, which then allows you to swap the Spectres in your on your main guy to the endgame Spectres, like the Warlord and the other guy, which is some DPS increase. Yeah, the Jewel step the same, pretty much accuracy and attack speed. If the corrupted Abyss Jewels are still in there, the 6 mods, definitely looking for either crit multi in here or for some resistances like Fire Res. Since we are not fully enmity capped here on 200, since we basically don't provide anything from the Aurabot besides Purity of Elements, we don't have Purity of Fire. It's a little bit tough to cap on this setup. Yeah, other gear, pretty straightforward. Yeah, the Helical, Fire Res, and the Power Charge on Kill. You don't have to have the power charge on kill actually on this setup, since you have the +2 minimum here. Just getting a +1 minimum on here will always give you the free minimum. So you don't need to have the unveiled mod. You can just craft it at the end. So I would go for double T1 res plus crit multi plus crafted min charge. Should be really fine. Yeah, and then Stygian, just some giga res. Yeah, that's it on the no rev pit setup. So with this one, you would then also need to swap the Ascendancy around. You drop the last node and you pick up the amulet plus unique ring and just run those two. Yeah, for the min-max setup, I've put it here that with Rav Pit working, yeah, because you don't need the untouched soul if you have a really good reflected neck, actually dropping the unique amulet node on the Uber Lab is then better to pick up back the weapon and shield slot again, because the replica Twizzle is technically nearly same DPS as a really good weapon. So this is like what difference of like 2%, but the Twizzle has the additional projectile, which is not calculated in there, which is, even if you have GMP, is like 10% or so more DPS. If you don't have GMP on your Merc, it's up to like 20%. So very, very strong wand. For the shield, yeah, either the Rev Pit, or if the Rev Pit does not work, you can use any other unique shield, but you should use a unique one because of the Uberlap node, which gives you the 8% more damage per unique. And there are a few like decent unique options available. If you can't find anything, just go back to your shield's amplifier. That's probably gonna be my first choice if I can't find any other solution and if the Rev Pit doesn't work. Yeah, for this, the rest of the gear has just been a little bit upgraded, some optimized stuff maybe on the prefixes. And biggest change is on the amulet. So instead of the untouched soul, like I mentioned, we're running a reflected simplex here. This is a very good one. This is with temple mod recombed onto the simplex and then reflected. So reflected always plus fire resistance, which allows us then to cap the 220 on the enmity without the untouched soul. This is also using a 55% enmity, but you can see we are already a bit overcapped, so I think like 60% should be okay. On the previous like endgame enmity setup, you can also cap here. So like we can test just if you swap here to the 55 one, we are already overcapped. So keep that in mind. Just upgrading the enmity with a volatile wild one is probably the easiest way to cap to the 200. Just getting a 60% one or something. Probably a bit expensive, but one of the biggest upgrades you can do, as you can see, like 14% here. Very strong. Yeah, I think that's it on the Merc side. Yeah, let's get to the outro then. I think that's it for all of the setups now, for the Aurabot and for the Merc. So I've added some notes in the Aurabot PoB. So if you have any questions, look there first. They might be answered still. Stuff like what skills do you want on your Kineticist, and some curse stuff, some HE Spectre stuff. So yeah, if you're looking for some more info, read for this. Other than that, hope you guys enjoyed this overview. It was a little bit in depth, but hope it helps you starting this archetype. I'm looking forward to playing it. Hopefully the start will not be too painful, and hopefully we can get online pretty quickly, but we will see what happens on Leaguestart. And other than that, guys, hope you have a great one, and see you in the next one.